How long Jean-Luc Picard was a Star Trek captain is mind-blowing. Jean-Luc Picard stands as one of the most enduring figures in Star Trek history. From his first command aboard the USS Stargazer to his later years mentoring a new generation of Starfleet officers, Picard's career spanned centuries. Literally. What makes his timeline so astonishing isn't just how long he served as a captain, but how profoundly his leadership defined the very idea of what it means to wear the Starfleet uniform. When all his appearances across TV, film, and even flashbacks are considered, Picard's tenure as captain stretches across nearly 60 years, and the way that time unfolded is nothing short of mind-blowing. The early years, the Stargazer era, before he ever set foot on the USS Enterprise D, Picard had already earned a reputation as a formidable officer. After graduating from Starfleet Academy in 2327, his early career was marked by both brilliance and tragedy. By 2333, at just 28 years old, Picard had risen to the rank of captain and taken command of the USS Stargazer. He captained the Stargazer for over 2 decades, until 2355, when the ship was destroyed in the Battle of Maxia. This moment, later known as the Picard Maneuver Incident, was a turning point. Though he lost his ship, Starfleet exonerated him, recognizing the tactical genius that saved his crew. That means Picard had already been a captain for more than 20 years before Star Trek. The next generation even began. The Enterprise D era. The golden years. When Star Trek, The Next Generation premiered in 2364, Picard was already a veteran officer with decades of command experience. His assignment to the USS Enterprise D would define his legacy and reshape Starfleet's ideals for a new generation. Over 7 seasons, Captain Picard not only commanded one of the most powerful ships in the fleet, but also served as humanity's moral compass in the 24th century. From first contact with the Q continuum to negotiating peace treaties and uncovering the deepest mysteries of space, Picard became synonymous with diplomacy, intellect, and restraint. His captaincy aboard the Enterprise D lasted until the ship's destruction in Star Trek Generations 2371, which marked a remarkable 7-year run during the series and films combined. However, this period represented much more than a mere stretch of years. It was a philosophical era for Star Trek itself. While earlier captains like Kirk embodied action and charisma, Picard's leadership was rooted in reflection and empathy. He proved that the greatest strength a Starfleet captain could have wasn't a phaser or a starship. It was conviction. The Enterprise E era. A captain tested by darkness. After the Enterprise D was destroyed, Starfleet rewarded Picard's resilience by giving him command of the USS Enterprise E in 2372. His tenure aboard this Sovereign-class starship spanned the events of Star Trek, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis, covering roughly a decade of missions that pushed Picard into darker and more personal territory. Here, Picard faced some of his greatest trials. He relived his trauma from the Borg assimilation in First Contact, wrestled with moral conflicts in Insurrection, and endured the devastating loss of his crew members and his clone in Nemesis. By the end of that film circa 2379, Picard had been a Starfleet captain for over 46 years. That's nearly half a century of leadership. And yet the most astonishing part was still to come. Because Star Trek, Picard expanded his timeline even further. Retirement, return, and redemption. When Star Trek, Picard began, decades had passed since the events of Nemesis. By 2399, a retired Picard was living quietly at Chateau Picard, disillusioned by Starfleet's failures and mourning the death of Data. But even in retirement, Jean-Luc couldn't ignore the galaxy's call for help. In his late 90s, he came out of retirement to lead one final mission. Though technically no longer an active Starfleet officer at the time, his actions in Picard seasons 1 to 3 showed that his command instincts never left him. In fact, by season 3, Starfleet had fully reinstated him as an admiral to help lead the mission aboard the USS Titan A, essentially returning him to the captain's chair for one last adventure. By the time of his final on-screen appearance, Jean-Luc Picard had spent over 60 years in or near the captain's seat. From 2333 to roughly 2401, his influence on Starfleet spanned more than 6 decades, making him one of the longest-serving officers in Federation history. Why Picard's longevity matters. It's easy to focus on the raw numbers. 60 years of command, dozens of crises averted, countless lives saved. But the